This is a music review, and it's the 2012 album Away from the World by the Dave Matthews Band. Before I get to the review, a little bit of background. Dave Matthews was born in South Africa in 1967 and started playing acoustic guitar when he was 9. The family flitted between South Africa, the UK and America, but in 1991 he formed the band, the Dave Matthews Band. At that particular time, the family had settled in Charlottesville, Virginia, and the founding members of the band at that time included Stefan Lassard, who on bass guitar, he's still with the band, and drummer and backing vocalist Carter Beauford, who also is still a member of the band and plays some violinist and backing vocalist Boyd Tinsley was also in that original band and still is, but the saxophonist Leroy Moore regrettably has passed on. Their debut album in 1994 was Under the Table and Dreaming, and it was a big success. The band, of course, evolved from bar life. Matthews was a bartender, and then he met the drummer Beresford and Moore, who were playing in local bands, and that's how the band started. Now to some information regarding the album. The album saw the reunited Dave Matthews with Steve Lillywhite, who produced them in the 90s, the time when they became very successful, and he assisted them in the big major label hits of that time. He was responsible for the 1998 smash Before These Crowded Streets. The album is the first since 2009's Big Whiskey and the Ku Klux King, and it is in fact their 8th album. Lillywhite was brought on board because of his ability and capability of reining in the excesses of the band without losing their elasticity and clarity, and he manages to encompass the tightly written pop songs which develop into mini epics with exuberant playing and massive sensitivity. The album's title, Matthews comments, is included in the riff to the lyrics to the Riff, one of the songs on the album, and reflects on the fact that we are born, we die, and that our body is our box. And the album was recorded in Seattle. So let's get to the album then. Things start off with Broken Things. It ripples solidly through the speakers, and the music integrates the horns with the piano without dominating the sound. This allows Dave's soft vocals to sit front on, and then there's a neat, delicate sax solo as we nourish the subtle beat and melody, and then the spiraling sax by Jeff Coffin glides us to the outro. It's an impressive and solid start. Lyrically, I think Dave's saying, amidst all the dark things that we face in our lives, world problems, etc., that we have the power to change our outlook, change our direction, change our way of handling things, but that we can't change the love that we have for our special one. So to track 2 then, Belly Belly Nice. There's a neat school of horns that spits out at the rhythm early on, and that snappy, funky feel. Delightful harmonies which are full of fun, and they skip, and then then there's a feeling of a sort of jam taking place with the sax solo and a tight ass bass and drums, which highlight the live feel of the band as the track runs its course. The violin adds a touch of helter-skelter, Louisiana style, very southern states frenzy. It's a very hot band in full flow, I felt. Lyrically, well, it's quite amusing as it reflects on the nursery rhyme Jack and Jill, but adds a little bit of naughtiness, but quite amusing. But aside from that, Dave reflects on the importance of love again, the need to maximise joy, reduce greed, and allow those feelings, those good feelings, to nourish your body. Track 3 then, Mercy. It's a slow ballad with violins prevalent, and a very low-key sax is very sombre in mood. The strings fill the sound, reminiscent of an orchestral feel, and the delicate piano and horn at the outro, a nod I felt to Bruce Hornsby. It's very tasteful and very melodic, showing you that it's not all energetic, punishing rhythms with the Dave Matthews Band. Lyrically, it's a message of reconciliation, possibly, with a previous love, to stand strong together. We are stronger as two rather than on our own. To repress the negativity around us all, the environmental issues, the world problems, and don't rely on religion. That's the message I think is carried in this song. So to track 4 then, Gaucho. Well, the rhythm instantly appealing, driven by that violin that hints at an Irish jig, almost an Irish rumble, and the pace oscillates between quick and slow. The lead instruments collide in an orderly chaos as Dave's singing lays down a more stable rhythm, and then children singing on top of a sparse bridge before a flute violin combination creates an amalgam of interest before switching back to the acoustic chords melody and children having fun. It does segue into track 5, more of that in a bit. Now lyrically, well, first, a gaucho is a skilled horseman from South America. They're prevalent in Argentina and Uruguay, and they're viewed as very brave and unruly. But here I think Dave is saying that gauchos are already in the USA, and maybe it's a song for immigrants and a reflection on how much America has achieved due to the blend of cultures, both brave and different. On to the next track then that segues in, Sweet. It's this beautifully sang intro with solo acoustic guitar, or is it there a ukulele there? I'm not quite sure. It's stripped back anyway, and a natural talent that Dave has to develop to get that eclectic mix common on Dave Matthews Band's albums. The spaciness is a refreshing change of style after the first 4 tracks going hell for leather. 1 minute from the end though, the rhythm does jump in, but the slow tempo enables a weepy violin solo heading to the horns tempo, but it sure has an Irish feel to it. Lyrically, well, I struggled with this one a little bit, so I got some help from the internet, came up with 2 ideas. Dave's son learning to swim, and the second one, escaping from addiction. I like the latter. Certainly you can read into the escape from the addiction through the words. Track 6 then is the riff. It starts off with a neat acoustic guitar vocal duet from Dave, and then the violin bleeds in subtly David's impassioned vocals, and the rhythm then quickens, but the flute maintains a soft laden melody. There's a tenderness about the sound as the music builds up slowly. The acoustic melody reminds us that this band can be intricate and lay down complex chord structures. The horns impose themselves as the outro approaches. I hear many similarities here with some of Jeff Rotel's material, as the lead solo then loads itself on top of the horn rhythm. Lyrically, I think it's a reminder of aging and what it's like to be a kid, remembering what happened then. When we mean a kid, I mean a sort of teenager, youngster in your 20s, and you need to retain those ideas and also recall those joyful moments, because Dave refers to being dead in that box. That's the end of life, and he's sort of suggesting that he wants to be recalled by those that have been in touch with him throughout his life, and he hopes that he's had an impact on them, and to stay close through the memories. I think it's very poignant. I think as you get older, relationships must have value and to be retained, and that in many ways relationships should overcome small issues rather than break up, particularly female-male relationships. Track 7 is the extremely short Bellyful, and it's an acoustic folk song. Dave sings the song with a passion, a sense that this was how it all started for him. I could picture him right at the beginning of his career with his guitar singing the words. So a very pleasant change. The lyric, well, it's just a simple love story really, exalting the desire to physically and emotionally be close to your love. Up next is track 8, If Only, and it strides out with a succinct bass drums root feeling and Dave's high-tone vocals juxtaposed neatly as the rhythm guitar and organ lay out a solid rock beat. What impresses me about this band is how the sound builds up and then ebbs and flows with the horns, and there's some very neat guitar pieces. It stinks of class, but a more difficult listen than, say, a Springsteen or a Mellencamp band. The rolling rhythms beautifully mould in with those sleazy horns back in the mix. The outro is a thing of beauty. Lyrically, it's a song about possible regret, about losing somebody, being foolish, being full of male ego, and losing a great opportunity. So to track 9 then, it's Rooftop. Rock's riffs links into Dave's spoken word early on. He uses this style of vocal regularly, and it's a blast really. It's a solid rock riff and pushy drums punching away, and the horns fill out the sound, and the rhythm guitar chords are impressive. They stick like glue to the horns, and then it gets a punch of sax solo and more extravaganza. It's rather frenetic as we move towards the outro. Lyrically, I read these lyrics and thought a person possibly suicidal who's lost his partner, and it also may be something to do with wanting to make it good again, change the course of an outcome of a failed relationship, but it's evidently too late to recover it. Track 10, Snow Outside. There's a delicate acoustic intro, and once again Dave really gets into the folk style to begin this track, and then the percussion taps its way into the mix, and then we get that familiar up-tempo beat as the story unwinds alongside the lead guitar, and there's some soothing horns. I also heard a dobro in there, and then the electric violin phases in and out to create a seasonal feel, possibly Christmas. It's fireside cold stuff, certainly, sitting by that fire with the coal embers shining at you. And then the flute goes on a bender, and the noise crescendo builds up into an avalanche of sound before returning to the laid-back percussive intro. And maybe there's a sense of someone walking, I guess, to let someone in out of the cold, vis-a-vis the title, as we segue into the next track, Drunken Sailor. Lyrically, it's a nice, cute love story, I think, describing feelings of elation, and the love is symbolised in many different ways. So on to that 11th track then, Drunken Sailor. There's some ukulele and whimsical vocals to start us off, and then the guitars intense to a rock wash of sound with horns striding out before a violin solo with some tasteful accompanying acoustic guitars highlight the complexity of the band's music. And this is indicative of the Dave Matthews Band before Dave starts off his storytelling. It's got a shanty-like feel, rock style, I thought. Think of a musical pastiche. The song may be guilty of too many ideas and time textures. A possible criticism, really, of Matthews' music. It just sounds too overbearing at times. So there's an inclination to say great and then bury the tune. Repeated listens will solve that problem, and the track glides into a funky laid-back jazz combo as the vocals roll you in to, I guess, that topsy drunken feel as the sax squirts out at the outro. Lyrically, I looked at the lyrics closely. I thought it was about self-awareness, about kindness, knowing our lives are finite, and that we should make the most of our time, learn and feel to the maximum, see the world and move forward and make a difference. The title, well, that's a bit tricky, as it's a little misleading, I thought, having a fling perhaps, but wasn't clear about that because of the need to take responsibility, although certainly the occasional binge might well be in order. Matthews said live to an audience that the song was one for the children, so it surely must be a positive sort of song. So that was track 11. So this is this album, Dave Matthews' album, has been an absolutely wonderful experience as far as I'm concerned. There's something in every track to get stuck into. But I commented on the last track that maybe there's a little bit too much really in here in total to really fully appreciate all the contents, all the tracks individually. But this has tended to be the way with Dave Matthews albums, and as a consequence you tend to frequently listen to them, frequently praise them, and then frequently forget them. My message, therefore, is that don't allow that to happen with this album. You must repeatedly listen to this album, at least half a dozen times, and then you'll fully appreciate its technicality, its brilliance, and its overall quality. So that's the review then for the Dave Matthews album 2012, the 2012 album Awake from the World.